My name is Valentin. I run Orbit for Creators, a show for and with solo creators. And the whole point is to show what creator culture is. I think that is what I'm really honing into, figuring out creator culture and communicating that to the world. This is the first time we're getting like four people together talking about creator economy stuff. And the whole reason we're here today is because about 2 weeks ago, Time Magazine published a list of the 100 top creators. That was boring, to say the very least. And there's so many people missing from that list. And I was just like, it is such a fluff piece where they even wrote how they selected the people on the list, which essentially stated nothing. And I took that as a call to action to create a list of top 100 European creators because there were none on that list. And also to make it very proudly biased, to just like, I think I had a chat with Mel about that, ideation of that. And you were saying like, it is an attention economy. So who are we paying attention to? And yeah, you all contributed to this list. A few other people contributed. And I also took it to Reddit and got some people from there, which I have at least one very interesting insight from that.
A very creator economy of you, unlike Time.
Yeah.
But I think that's half the battle, right?
Yeah, it has to be participatory, right? It has to be. The whole point is to, yes, I want it to be biased, but I also want it to be really, really diverse. And I think that is the first takeaway, is looking at that list that's currently 127 or so, how few people I actually know on that list.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm just looking through. It's like you got people from Czechia and like a whole bunch of places that there's no chance I would have ever heard of.
Yeah.
But isn't that the beauty of the creator economy, right? So when you think about the list that Time produced, everyone spoke English. Hate to break it to you, of the 8 billion people that live on our planet, I'm pretty sure not everyone speaks English. And that's, I think, the creative economy kind of strength, is that you can communicate, share, feel what someone else's intent is in your own native tongue. And like when I looked at that list, like I had the same reaction of, oh my God, like I know like a small handful. But then I'm like, oh, they're coming from countries who don't speak English, who aren't my native tongue, like, who I wouldn't understand. Like, I don't think I would find a German comedian funny in English, right? So I think that's the beauty of what we're doing.
And did you see, I was going to ask, also the Times 100 podcasts came out, 100 best podcasts ever.
Really?
I think it was just yesterday that this happened. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see that yet.
Going to bed and scrolling on my phone on LinkedIn, which who does that? But and then I saw this this list, and they were all in English, and I'm pretty sure they were all, I mean, of course, like American, British, Australian. I don't know if there was.
I found one I recognized after 30. Like
on the podcast list.
There's so many I've never heard of.
Yeah. I mean,
like, there's some
I'm
good
not
ones,
surprised.
Yeah.
Time Magazine is an American magazine, so I'm not surprised.
Talk about being biased.
It
right?
is English speaking. Yeah, of course.
Well, I think also an element that it seems to come across as is they're trying to look cool and up to date by associating with other young American creators rather than actually being up to date and hence tracking who is actually creating impact within their communities. It seems like they're trying to play catch up and still look cool, the cool parent, rather than actually being the place where people go to keep up with this space.
Yeah. I mean, the whole topic of impact and how to measure that is a deep rabbit hole that I just had a conversation about on the channel.
I was going to say,
Yeah, and it's for somebody might have an impact on somebody else that has like no following at all. So it's really hard to quantify that.
And its depth as well. Something I've been talking to people about the past couple of days is that you'll have cases where someone might have like 30 million followers on TikTok. They have a meet and greet and not a single person shows up. And yet I have a couple of friends recently who have been hosting events around North America, around Australia. They might have a couple hundred or a couple of thousand followers. And yet they're able to invite hundreds of people to their events in each city that they go to. So there's an element to about the density of audience you have as well. It's not just the money that Forbes talks about, or maybe their engagement that Time was supposedly using. It's also about the density of audience, and if you are to do something, what's their likelihood of acting? Like when Yes Theory hosted a fundraiser for Reg a couple months ago that I was at. In 4 hours it already raised like £30,000. Within the day it was 120,000, and the next couple of days it got to like over £200,000. Like not many communities can do that.
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting in what you're sharing, because one of the pieces that when we've had a discussion about the differences between this side of the Atlantic in Europe versus the US is the US more trend focused, right? In terms of when you look down that list, whereas I think Europeans tend to be a bit more nuanced storytelling. And I feel inspired by the shirt that you're wearing, Parkus. Like if I think of when we have conversations about Dude Perfect versus Sidemen, Europe knows both sets, right? But it's Sidemen who sold out a 90,000 person Wembley Stadium in minutes, right?
And they're not on the list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So repping the Yes Theory as well.
You bring up such an interesting point that Europe is kind of different, right? Because in my experience, I had a full year since last summer until kind of this spring when I wanted to experiment with TikTok and talk about different issues in Romania, social issues. And some of the videos went really viral. And that was also my goal, right? To go viral, to have that kind of impact. But after 1 year, I was burnt out by all the negativity on TikTok, first of all, and also by the thought of how impactful is this really? Also as like a viewer, also as a scroller on TikTok, I'm like, oh, this is such cool information. I feel like I learned something new. Do I actually remember it? So like, that's another thing that's very, very, very true. Because at the same time, it makes me think I started a nonprofit in Romania in 2020, and we didn't really go viral necessarily. But when you think about all the people that have gone through as volunteers, that have seen the post, that have interacted with our work somehow, what is the bigger impact, right? Is it just different kinds of impact? So I love this conversation.
I have one question to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it. Like, what even makes a European creator? Because there are some already contentious people on the list, some Europeans that moved away, and are they still European?
Could you compete in the Olympics? I think that's the category. If you compete for your national team in the Olympics, you can count for the European.
Really gender out of this though, right? Because then that enters a whole new political debate.
Yeah. So I don't know, when I asked you to contribute, what kind of, did you use any kind of rubric to like, who falls into this category, who falls out of this category? I don't know. Any thoughts are appreciated.
I think initially it was just trying to list as many as I could think of who were deemed major either now or somewhat in the past, as long as they still have some connection to today. And then today's goal to try and actually narrow that down and determine what is just like big and what is actually impactful.
It's interesting because when Valentin first posted this on LinkedIn, I was like, who are the ones? And it was almost like what ticked off in my head straight away. And one, Parker, you raised the fact that he's not a creator. And we can have that debate maybe another time about the basketball player. But, right. But I have to say that my instinctive reaction was almost emotional. Like, who would I see in it? And then when I was reflecting on that list, it was how were they touching my soul? And why was I going back to watch their content? How was I then taking that content and conversing with my family or my friends? And how did it kind of reverberate in my community through me? And then when I wanted to sit down and think of like that longer list, I went straight into kind of business mode. What's the criteria? I think I even sent you a WhatsApp message, Valentin, like, are we doing it on followers? Are we doing it on income? Are we doing it on those that actually make a difference? That, and it was so difficult, which in some ways is what I like about the qualitative side of it, because it leads to a deeper and richer conversation and a debate, right? When you see a Forbes list of who's the wealthiest, it's kind of easy because it's a number. When you're talking about top creator, you're now going into the art space. You're going into something that's subjective. And you're talking about a continent, and we're touching on this just earlier, of like how many different countries there are in Europe, different histories, right? We then have a shared history, languages, food, the way that we communicate versus a large country. So I do think it was difficult when I was coming up with that list. But I love the fact that we're debating it because it brings forwards the very essence of the creator economy, which is to drive connectivity, is to drive thinking and communicate. Like, I would not have met any of the three of you if it wasn't for the digital space, because we live in different countries, different backgrounds. So that's the beauty of it. So thank you, Valentin.
I think that also goes to the question of what we value as a society. The Americans tend to more have that capitalistic perspective of everything is about money and maximizing that sense of self, where Europe has much more of a lifestyle perspective, that the optimum is to earn enough to, take a weekend off, to just like relax, have good friends around you, have a good day to day. It's a different, yes, there's some crossover in both.
Yeah, it's not very American.
But there is a different sense of what matters.
Yeah.
I would beg to differ here. I actually feel that Europeans were the ones that gave capitalism to the world. The Americans have just done it better.
But
right?
They handed off.
What I would say is also, as creators, we all have a monetization trap issue. I think that, do you lead with monetization or do you not lead with monetization, I think is maybe the difference. From my perspective, when I look at the creators in Europe versus creators, mass generalization here, right? Because there are definitely creators in the US that are led with purpose, intent, right? And even creators in Europe that are led by money. But just generally speaking, I think there is a difference there. But I'd like to see all creators be more focused on business creation and actually think more about their own wealth. But that's another day's topic.
When it comes to podcasting, I was thinking about it, right? Kind of how it compares or how is it different? I would say maybe because there's more of a need there and it's such a growing industry and monetization is a problem. If you're an independent podcaster, you have to have it top of mind. It's just too many resources to not think of how you're going to monetize it. In that sense, I feel like it can be compared pretty strongly. It's a priority in all parts of the world. And in terms of the list, kind of what was coming to mind for me in picking the people, I think also from my position from Eurowaves is, who do I see as a leader in the industry of podcasting in Europe, in their own specific local market, right? But who is a leader, not just in the sense of who has the most experience, but who puts themselves out there, who takes risks, who's like courageous, who is really also focused on that storytelling impact aspect we were talking about. And second thing that I think all of them share is the fact that they think cross-border. They're not just focused on what's happening locally, but they think of the European market as a whole, and they're open to collaboration and to networking and to supporting one another.
I definitely see that. Just say quickly, the idea of support, that especially in the beginning, a lot of American groups tended to be about business opportunities, hype house, Team 10. How can we make money off this operation? Where a lot of Brits were just roommates that just happened to create content together and feature in each other's videos, whether it be the Brit crew or the Sidemen or whatever, which has meant they've tended to last longer because they are genuine friend groups in which the YouTube operation is second. The primary goal there is friendship. And it's why you have like Rhett and Link lasting so long, or now with a lot of the streamers, the OTVs and sort of stuff, where the focus is different. It's not about how much money can we make. Sure, that's a nice side benefit. But really, it's about how can we just have fun doing this fun career together. I think that creates much stronger foundations. And I like what you said about courage. That's a good metric to frame it off, is who's willing to do things that aren't the standard path, that are willing to pave new paths for others to follow. Because that's about as good as you can get as a leader in this space.
And how did you approach it?
I think I'm going to start with an example, because what is or who is and who isn't a European creator, I think we're going to be here debating for the next 10 years. But a really good example is one of my favorite creators, Laura Kampf. She's from Germany. She has the city that she's from, Cologne, in her logo, and all her content was based there, right? She just DIYs, furniture, buildings, whatever. She's building stuff. But about a year or 2 years ago, she kind of made the transition to move to LA. And now she has created this term for herself, that she's the janitor of LA. So once a week, she goes out and finds trash and makes a sculpture out of it, or makes something out of it. And so it is still very much this like resourcefulness. There's no financial thinking behind it. It's just like, how can I help this community here? And so she's like really bridging this gap kind of. Yeah, it's there's other people like Sea-Dog VA who's from the UK. He grew up in Wales and now he's in Japan and makes content around being in Japan, right? But I still see him as a European creator just by the way he shows up. There's no like bullet point list I can give you to that.
Bullet point.
You know, you can have dual citizenship. It's all cool.
I was just going to say this about citizenship. I find it funny because one of the good things about Europe, and hopefully it stays this way, right? And we're all a part of encouraging it because the times are looking interesting. But it is that diversity, right? And like everyone also coming here from all different parts of the world. So I would say if you've been here for a while, you're not European. But if you've been here, if you've developed here in so many ways, you should be part of this list. You know, I don't know if we have people who are not just originally European, but that's one thing to think about.
Yeah. It's the sports team thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid of immigrants, of people from somewhere else, but as soon as they're on the national soccer team, they're your hero. And it's just like, okay. There's no rhyme or reason.
He's the good one.
Yes. Cool. I don't know. Should we look at the list actually? Because
let's.
I don't know if I said that while we were recording already, but my key takeaway is how few people I actually know who are on this list, showing me that my average content consumption in a week is actually very narrow. It's probably not that different from when TV was around. I watch, 10, 20 shows, so to speak. And for anything new to enter, I find it really difficult. So I'm actually really happy we have this list because there's already 3 or 4 people on there. And I'm like, ooh, I want to subscribe. I want to know more. But is there anybody here that really stands out for you? I already mentioned 2 creators. Anybody here you really want to mention that deserves a shout out from you?
I think Yes Theory and Sidemen are 2 ones that definitely go up top 10.
Yeah.
Kind of without
negotiation. But Yes Theory is an interesting example, right?
None of them are American.
No, but they come from Canada. That is where it originated.
Well, they studied in Canada for university. I think that hardly makes them Canadian.
Isn't that the question? Like, what passport?
And they didn't even finish. They quit.
Yeah. No, and I think the last thing I heard is that they're basically the headquarters in Paris, right?
That's one of the headquarters. Kind of like, I think Cam's gone back to Melbourne, Tommy, Stefan, Des, they're based out of Paris.
Yeah.
Amar, I don't know what he's doing. And then, the others.
Yeah, because he was in exile for a while, right? Basically, he was kind of stateless for a little bit.
Who? Oh, Amar.
Yeah, Amar.
Yeah, because he couldn't get back to Egypt without being conscripted into the military, and his US visa was running out, so he had to try and buy St. Kitts and Nevis for like 150 grand or something. Yeah, absurd process.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely an interesting example of what European creators can look like.
I'm going to be controversial and call out one that I really like, which is Panda Boy, which I know is Chid's Entertainment. But
I don't know who that is.
But he's Italian.
I don't know either. Yeah.
And his artistry is amazing. Like when I first saw it, it honestly took me back to Michael Jackson's music video, It's Black, It's White. Remember when the morphing was huge and like completely technically cutting edge?
Sure.
He does some of that. And then he's expanded to bring his girlfriend in. And I think it was just a really lovely example of how someone who's passionate about their art form, sharing it, having a strong community of followers, that then they can expand from a business perspective. Granted, I stumbled across him because of my 7-year-old son. I would say that. But again, it plays to the fact that the term creator is so broad. It's like using the term of an athlete. You know, you could be doing hurling or you could be a triathlete, and they're both athletes.
Yeah.
Or competitive
I want to give a shout out to Jasmine Bawami, who I absolutely love her work. She is an audio creator, we can call her, and podcaster. I really recommend her podcast called Little Devils. It's so well produced. There's beautiful sound design, beautiful music, and the storytelling is just amazing. And what I really love talking about, like the inclusivity from before, is she's German Egyptian, I believe. And so she has a very interesting background that she talks about on the podcast, and also involves in her work with the Echo Collective, which is a collective she made for other audio creators to all come together for a week and work on a piece. And so she's doing a European cohort this year, and she's doing a Middle Eastern and North African cohort next year that she already launched, and the applications are open. So I really admire that kind of work. And again, bringing people together, like supporting them with actual resources and trying to. So yeah, that connectivity is just so, and I hear us all going back to that.
Yes.
There's one other one that I want to kind of pull out. Grace Campbell from the UK. She's a comedian. And the reason I want to pull out her journey, it's really unusual because she started out in COVID, and she started out doing kind of those viral dances and kind of doing that trend aspect, and then started doing a little bit of comedy and got traction. The thing I love about her journey, though, as a creator, is that her art form of being a comedian was always core to her. And it's a really lovely story of how she's been able to go from being that kind of, that 10-second viral clip to actually doing longer form YouTube types videos around comedy, but now actually filling up theaters. And it's showing how a content creator can actually go from digital to physical. But I think she's also a really strong example where to actually make it as a content creator, you need to have multiple revenue lines, right? YouTube, TikTok, and real life experiences, right? There's 3 straight off the bat, and just the challenges that one has to go through. And I think that she's really nailing the art form, but a really great example of how you can grow from just trialing something out, stumbling into it, to actually being like your core business, but it does become tougher. But I think she's hilarious as well. And I met her at South by Southwest. So I wanted to shout out a female content creator.
Very important, very important. And just making that jump from short form content to actually putting seats into butts into seats, that way around, is a hard step to make, right? Not everybody can do it.
I was thinking as well when the original list came out. I think her name
is Amelie. Go ahead.
Oh, I think I stopped like 10 seconds ago. I think because this is such a delay, it becomes confusing. Yeah. We don't know.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Because I think the one person I do know on the list, Anna, who is Salary Transparent Street on Time list. It's one of those things where she might not be the most widely known on that Time 100 list, but she's the top in her niche, and her niche is extremely important to empowering people. So it kind of made me realize that, like, while someone may not be the most widely known, if they fill that category of being in an extremely important niche, that can still put them up the list because of the value that it does bring to people who are engaging with that. So her whole thing is about salary transparency. How do you make sure you're not being screwed over by your organization? And it's like, I think anyone can agree that's pretty essential to effectively every single person. And if you promote a culture of speaking about things that are typically taboo, that have been made taboo so that you can get exploited, it's those sort of categories where I think you deserve to go up the rankings, even if you're not as famous as some other people potentially.
Yeah,
I really like what you said there, Park, because I think it's really powerful. Go, Andrea, please.
I was going to mention Chicken Shop. If you guys know the YouTube show where she interviews, I believe her name is Amelie.
Yes,
yeah.
I put that one
I'm
there.
not sure exactly what her name is. Great, yeah. I think she's so amazing. And the fact that she's built, such a brand from that. It's so recognizable, such a simple concept, and she's taken it to this level is, really inspiring.
She's definitely one of the standout creators from Europe, if we're counting UK, which is a different conversation.
Standout or impactful? Has she created wider impact outside of?
Speak to that if she created any impact. I don't follow what is going on in that bubble, but I just know people know her name, people know the show, and it is so different from anything else out there. And so she's one of the few people who, like, I think was able to not just use the algorithm to grow, but really use word of mouth and press and just spread beyond her immediate audience by the way she shows up.
And putting those people in such a context that they're not used to and audiences aren't used to seeing them in, like Hot Ones, any of those shows.
Yes, exactly. Make celebrities uncomfortable. That is your recipe for success.
I think the other interesting one I want to point out, I think it's called the Red Hand podcast. These are two ladies that have been doing this for quite some time, and they actually met at a dinner party. And I think this is a wonderful example of how you can become a creator without aspiring to be one, because you share a passion. And I think that's what Europeans do so well, right? They love storytelling, they share passions, and they share the passion for serial killers and understanding the psyche of it and understanding why. You know, they stumbled, they were doing podcasts when it was just coming out, and they're really wonderful at the way that they've given back to the community as well. And they're another example where they consistently every week put out information. Scarily, there's always a lot of content to be made on this topic, but they've also transitioned into in real life experience where they actually kind of meet their community. They're big on Patreon, but it's a really lovely way of, again, showing how I think Europeans are really at the forefront, in my mind, of driving that in real life experience. And we have to remember they have community across different countries and across different languages. So there's a beauty of being able to bring people together. And there are a number of stories of how their community have also kind of connected and then started their own creator journey. So that kind of, how do creators inspire others to talk, but also inspire people to not be afraid to bring their story and their own creations. I think the two of them have done phenomenal from that perspective as well.
I want to highlight one more person that came from Reddit and was mentioned over and over and over again by those people. And that is a woman going by the name of Itchy Boots. And she just drives across Europe on her motorcycle, doing very, very classic vlogs, or what I like to call vintage YouTube. There's nothing special to it. Anybody could do it, but people seem to be really in love with the way she does it. And so I just want to mention that and put that on the record, because that is definitely content I know I would enjoy. And I'm glad that the internet kind of surfaced that to me.
Glad you surfaced. I've already searched her. I found her, and that's definitely getting tagged for me to watch later. Super interesting.
Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be complicated. Like, I know there's also a lot of kind of challenge creators or entertainment creators on there who I don't care for, but they pull in a lot of big numbers and they do spend a lot of money on their content. But it can be as simple as just like, I'm going for a ride on my bike and I'm going to see what happens.
I think the other piece that I like about the list that we have is that we also have that social kind of confront the politics aspect. You know, Europe's going through a lot of changes, as many countries are right now. The number of elections that are happening over the past kind of 12, 18 months, the changes in governments, the socioeconomic difficulties, a lot of questions in Europe around immigration, as other countries are too. And having content creators that can kind of bring different lenses from that immigrant story and tackle those aspects, I think is really pivotal and a really strong reflection of who European creators are. Because I think you almost bring a human lens to very serious topics that typically and historically was really only provided by news outlets and filtered by big corporations. So I really love seeing more of that across Europe. And I know we have a number of content creators that share that list. We have, I think, Sebastian Fritt, who does a documentary of being living as a Serb in Kyrgyzstan, but there was, I can't remember his name, a German in that does that really well, that brings in that immigrant politics and kind of living as a German altogether. So I think that's important.
And on that topic of news, I also want to highlight TLDR News, which I don't know much about the background of it, but it seems to me it's just a few people who wanted to bring good journalism to YouTube. And it's genuinely the only way I consume news now.
Wow.
I mean, they serve it where I am, where I spend time, and in a format that I like to consume. And so
8-minute bites as well. Get that mid-roll ad, but don't bore people.
Yeah, the way they do ads is a whole nother thing, but I think that also leads over to the way we can wrap this whole thing up. But like, where do you guys see kind of all of this heading? Like, what are the trends that you're spotting, or like your hopes, wishes, desires for the future of creator culture and European creator economy, I say, for lack of a better term?
I think trying to figure out what deems success.
Ooh.
Because it's not the same for everyone from everywhere. Some it's money, some it's about living a good life, some it's about doing what you love, not in a boring office. Everyone's got a different focus priority.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say this is something that was coming to mind a lot with what you all were just talking about. It's like the decrease in the trust in media is so prevalent, right? And that's in Europe, and that's in the States, and that's everywhere in the world. So I think creators and just the whole creator economy is only going to keep going up, whether we're talking about podcasts, social media, independent news, kind of what you were talking about, Valentine. There's going to be a need for that, and human stories like you were mentioning, Mel. So, and then also making sure that as consumers, we're holding creators and independent media organizations and all these new elements of society coming in, holding them responsible, as well as we're holding public media organizations responsible as well, is definitely something that I think is going to keep increasing too.
Mm-hmm. Hopeful that we will stop the obsession with Gen X and Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. Content creators and content consumers are across every different race, religion, and age. There's some amazing baby boomer content creators that are absolutely kicking it.
That human element will remain. I think that will stay strong, and we're seeing more and more of that kind of as a final send-off, whether it be being a part of Creator Camp earlier in the year and seeing them push more and more independent sort of filmmakers and focusing on that connection to community, or recently seeing, as I mentioned earlier, about all the events being finally hosted back in Australia when there was none of those a few years ago, and us struggling to host them ourselves. I think we are seeing this sort of desperation back to a world where there were more third spaces, where there was more physical connection, because we've been driven to such a state of economic or social despair that we're just trying to get a hold of anything that really connects deeper anymore. The human interactions we lost a lot of for those few years.
Yeah. And that is really what I hope to see, is to create this shared European identity in the creator space. What do we stand for? What do we not stand for? And even though we come from very different cultures, different languages, different backgrounds, have some kind of common denominator that we're pushing forward together. That is my big hope and maybe prediction for the future.
Thank you so much for bringing us all together, Valentina. I genuinely appreciate it. Parker and Andrea, it was so lovely to be connected, and I hope we have many more debates and conversations going forwards.
Yeah, this was fun. Let's see how this goes, and hopefully we do more of these, because yes, there were so many topics in this conversation alone that deserve their own kind of four-way discussion about all the nuances.
Take care, everyone. Ciao.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you all.